you ever felt like the whole world was against you right at the moment when you were about to receive something great? You may not realize it, but the chaos you're facing is not random. It could be the very signal that heaven is about to move on your behalf. So how can you tell? Listen closely. Have you ever stood before a decision and felt your heart urging you to move forward even though your eyes couldn't see anything clearly? That's not just a fleeting emotion. That's the invitation of God. But what would happen if you dared to step out even while everything still feels uncertain? My dear friends, today I want to share something with you that could completely change the way you view the struggles in your life. The delays, the disappointments, the seasons when you feel abandoned. Because I know for certain that someone listening to these words right now is very close to something incredible that God has already prepared. You may not see anything yet. Everything around you may still be chaotic, still silent, still unchanged. But I want you to know one thing. Heaven has already begun to move on your behalf. However, before the blessing is poured out, there are always signs. Small signals that may seem insignificant, but they are clear evidence that God is at work. Maybe He starts changing everything around you. Maybe He whispers something into your spirit. Maybe He closes doors you thought were supposed to be open. And sometimes, He allows you to go through trials that seem far beyond your strength. Not to break you, but to prepare you. Because the God we believe in is the God of greatness. He doesn't work in small, ordinary ways. He hasn't called you to live a mediocre life. He is the God of miracles, of abundance, of things beyond what you ever dared to dream. So if you're in a waiting season right now, if the battle seems to be getting harder, if something deep inside you is stirring, sensing that something big is coming, even if you can't name it yet, please know this message is for you. Because when God is about to release something great, He gives you signs. And today, I want to help you recognize those signs, so you don't miss what heaven is trying to tell you. Before He releases a great blessing, before He pours out favor in a way that exceeds your imagination, He often takes you through a season of unusual testing. I know that doesn't sound pleasant. No one wants to hear that before the good comes, there's pain. But maybe, just maybe, this is the very word your soul needs right now. Some of you are in the middle of that season. A season where you've prayed, you've pleaded, asking, Lord, why has everything become so difficult? Why do I feel like I'm struggling more than ever before? And the answer is this. It's not because He has forgotten you. It's not because He is punishing you. It's because He is preparing you. Have you noticed that throughout the Bible, every time God was about to do something great, there was always a season of testing beforehand? Think of Joseph. Before he entered the palace, he had to endure the painful betrayal of his own brothers, be sold into slavery, and then thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit. Think of Moses. Before he led millions out of Egypt, he spent 40 years in the wilderness, carrying doubts and wondering if God still remembered him. Think of David. Before becoming king, he didn't live in a palace. He lived as a fugitive, hiding in caves, running for his life. And then there's Jesus. Before he began his redemptive ministry to humanity, he went into the wilderness, fasted for 40 days, and faced direct temptation from the devil. You see, before breakthrough, there's always a battle. Before the blessing, there's always a testing. Before a great turning point, there's always a journey of refinement. And that's why difficult seasons are necessary. Not because God wants to hurt you, but because He wants to prepare you. Preparation always comes before promotion. You wouldn't hand the keys of a car to a 5-year-old just because you love them, right? Because love doesn't mean giving too soon. It requires maturity. And God is the same. He loves you too much to give you something you're not ready to handle. A blessing that comes too early can become a burden. But when it arrives at the right time, it will lift you higher. So He allows you to go through trials, not to weaken you, but to make you stronger. Not to scare you, but to help you grow. so that when the moment comes, you won't be crushed by the good thing, but you'll step into it with readiness, with gratitude, and with steadfast faith. Some of you are in that very season of refining. It feels like you're walking through fire, but remember, fire doesn't destroy gold. Fire refines gold. Fire doesn't weaken steel. It strengthens it. If you feel like you're in the furnace right now, that's not a sign of an ending. It's a sign of a beginning, a preparation, a process to remove what no longer serves you, to forge you into a stronger, wiser version of yourself, worthy of what's ahead. He is teaching you endurance. He is stretching the limits of your faith. He is leading you into a deeper trust in Him. Because where He wants to take you is no place for weak faith. That place cannot hold doubt or fear. That place requires you to stand firm, to be equipped, and to rely entirely on His strength and guidance. So if you are in a dry season right now, if you are in the middle of a storm, if it feels like everything is falling apart, then take heart. Because it simply means you are being prepared for something beyond what you can imagine. I know it's not easy. I truly know. Because there are moments when you are so tired you don't even have the strength to pray. Tired from waiting too long without seeing anything change. Tired from fighting endlessly while the results remain unclear. Sometimes you sit quietly in the dark wondering, will this battle ever end? But please hear me out for a moment. This difficult season will pass. It is not your final destination. And most importantly, God didn't bring you this far just to abandon you halfway. The one who allowed the storm to rise is the same one who will take your hand and lead you through it. And when you make it through, when you stand on the other side of the storm and look back, you'll see that every tear you cried, every prayer whispered in the late night, every moment you thought you couldn't go on, all of it was part of a greater picture. Every single piece had purpose. None of it was wasted. It was preparation. It was God shaping you, leading you toward the good and mighty thing He has had in store for you since the beginning. So please don't give up. Even if you're tired, even if you feel discouraged, don't let go. Don't let lies creep into your mind telling you that God has forgotten you, that He's turned His back on you. No, my friend. He sees you. He knows exactly where you are. He is working, even in the moments when it feels like nothing is happening. You may not feel it, but He has never left. You are not being buried. You are being planted. Let that sink in. A seed must also stay in darkness before it pushes through into the light. And at a certain moment, what He has planted in your heart will begin to rise. It will grow, it will flourish, and it will bring you into a new season. A season where you live in what He has prepared for you all along. You'll sense it before you see it. There will be a stirring inside you, a restless feeling you can't quite explain, a fresh wind blowing through your soul, making you feel like you are standing on the edge of something important but still unclear. You may not be able to put it into words, but deep down you know something is shifting. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Recently you felt that shift. There have been mornings when you woke up feeling different, as if you're waiting for something you've never seen before. The things that used to excite you no longer hold the same spark. The places that once made you feel safe now feel confining. The conversations that used to bring you joy now seem hollow. Something is changing in you. And even though you don't fully understand why, you know it's real. Let me tell you this. That is God stirring your spirit. He is not only working around you, He is moving deep within you. When God prepares someone for a new level, He always begins inside. He awakens in you a holy discontent, a healthy dissatisfaction that makes you yearn for something greater, something deeper. It doesn't mean you're ungrateful for what you have. It doesn't mean you don't cherish your current blessings. But within you there is a calling, a clear inner knowing that says, I was made for something more. And that very feeling is proof that God is positioning you for a brand new journey. Take a look at the story of Nehemiah. He was not a prophet. He was not a religious leader. He was simply the king's cupbearer living in the comfort of a palace. But one day, he heard the news about Jerusalem. The walls were in ruins. His people were in pain, and at that very moment his heart could no longer stay still. That pain was not just an emotion. It didn't fade away with time. It became a burden on his heart. Something greater than himself, greater than the safety of his current life. It was God awakening Nehemiah's spirit. It was a divine calling, a mission far beyond any personal expectations. And what I'm wondering is this: what is God stirring in your heart? What is He making you restless about? Is He calling you into something that feels overwhelming? Are you experiencing strange and hard to express feelings that you simply cannot ignore? That's exactly it. Because God always begins by stirring your spirit before He changes your external circumstances. He is planting new desires in your heart, new dreams, new visions that you may not even fully understand yet. You begin to feel unsatisfied with things that used to bring you comfort. You no longer want to remain in the places you once called home. You no longer find peace in what is familiar. That's because your soul is longing for something deeper, something greater, and that's because something extraordinary is drawing near. There are moments in life when you suddenly feel something shift inside you. It's not loud, it's not clear, but it is deep and persistent. That is not random. It is not a fleeting emotion. It is the quiet yet powerful call from God. But to recognize it, you must listen. You must pause in the midst of the chaos, in the noise of life, and truly pay attention. Because the enemy will never want you to notice that stirring. He will do everything to make you ignore it. He will distract you with work, with worries, with things that seem urgent. He will whisper that you should just keep living as usual, thinking the same way, staying where you are. And if you listen to him, you will miss the most important thing. But my friend, when God is stirring your spirit, it is not something you can ignore. It is His way of saying, prepare yourself. I am about to do something new in your life. And if you try to ignore it, if you insist on holding on to your old ways, you will soon feel a deep discomfort within. Not because of what is happening outside, but because something inside you is longing to step into something greater. When God begins working in you, the things that once satisfied you suddenly feel empty. You can't go back to old habits, to old patterns of thought, to the places that once felt safe, because those things no longer fit who you are becoming. God is pulling you out of your comfort zone, stretching you for something greater than you've ever seen. You may not yet see the full picture. Things may still seem blurry, but that holy restlessness, that unexplainable urging, is a reminder that you are standing at the threshold of a powerful transformation. When God is about to bless you in a big way, He rarely does it in ways you can predict. You won't always see the door swing open right away. On the contrary, sometimes you'll see doors slam shut. The plans you've been working on suddenly fall apart. The opportunities you thought you had slip through your fingers. And in those very moments, the voice of the enemy will whisper, see? Where is God now? If He's really with you, why is everything so hard? But I want you to pause, take a deep breath, and remember this. Closed doors do not mean God has stopped working in your life. In fact, they might be part of His divine plan. He is not delaying to discourage you. He is delaying to prepare, to protect, and to rearrange things behind the scenes in a way you cannot yet understand. You may have prayed, trusted, and done everything within your power. But instead of seeing results, you are staring at a dead end. You ask, Lord, why do I keep facing obstacles? But what if the delay itself is the answer? What if those closed doors are not rejections, but holy redirections? I want you to reflect on this. God never closes a door to harm you. He closes it to protect you from entering what is not meant for you. He holds you back not because you are unworthy, but because what He is preparing for you is far greater than what you are currently hoping for. Think of Joseph. This young man once received dreams full of vision from God, images of a radiant future. But instead of stepping immediately into his destiny, Joseph fell into a series of painful events. rejected by his brothers, sold as a slave, falsely accused, and then imprisoned. If you were Joseph, you might think that God had abandoned you, but no, he never left. In fact, he was using every trial to prepare Joseph for something far more significant. Each closed door was not the end, but a step leading to the throne. And the same applies to you. You may not understand why that job didn't work out, why that relationship ended, or why everything seems off course. But if you could see from God's perspective, you would realize that every event has its purpose. One day you will look back and thank Him for the things that didn't go your way, because it was those very things that led you to the right place at the right time and to the right blessing God had prepared for you. I know there are people right now who feel stuck in a long season of waiting. You've been persistent, you've prayed, you've knocked many times, but everything still seems still and unmoving. And in that prolonged silence, doubt starts creeping in. Lord, where are you? But friend, just because you haven't seen anything doesn't mean God isn't doing something. Just because the door hasn't opened doesn't mean it won't open. God has not abandoned you. He is simply working quietly, thoroughly, and lovingly behind the scenes. Sometimes God isn't saying no. He is simply saying not yet. Because if He gives you that blessing too soon, you might not be ready to receive it. And what was meant to be a gift could turn into a burden. So He waits. But He doesn't wait idly. During that time, He trains you. He builds you from the inside out. He strengthens your faith, shapes your patience, and deepens your trust in Him. And when the time comes, when the door finally opens, you won't just walk through it with excitement, but with maturity. You will step in with wisdom forged through trials, with strength from perseverance, and with a faith that has been anchored like a rock. So if you are in a season of waiting, don't be discouraged. Don't believe you've been forgotten. It could be that you are being prepared for something far greater. And who knows? The door you've been waiting on may be about to swing open. There is one important truth you must remember. God's timing is always perfect. Even if you're still waiting, still wondering why things aren't going your way, He sees the full picture that you cannot see. He knows what is best, not just for now, but for your future. Imagine this. You're standing in front of a door, knocking repeatedly, but it just won't open. You feel confused, even frustrated, because you believe that door is the right path. But have you ever stopped to consider that maybe it was God Himself who closed that door? Not to punish you, but to protect you from something that was never meant for you. You may not see the cliff behind that door, but He does. And because He loves you, He holds you back. Many of us have been in that exact situation. We stubbornly pursue something with all our strength, only to later realize we were fighting against God's own hand. Some try everything they can to salvage a relationship that's already decayed. Others throw themselves into work, into projects and plans, just because they're afraid of missing out, even though deep down there's been a lingering sense of unrest. And eventually they burn out, because the more they push, the more things fall apart. You know, when you have to force something to happen, it's often a clear sign that it's not from God. He does not work through pressure or fear. He doesn't need you to force anything into existence. When something comes from Him, it comes with peace, even if it comes with challenges. When God opens a door, you won't need to push. When He provides an opportunity, you won't need to fight for it. You just need to step into it with surrender and trust. So instead of wrestling with something that was never meant for you, learn to surrender. Stop complaining about a timing that hasn't arrived, and start giving thanks that He's protecting you from what isn't His best. Let your heart be still and wait in faith, because God's delays are never denials. They are preparations. And you'll see at the right time another door will open, one that you won't have to struggle to walk through. It will fit, it will flow, and it will be confirmed by God's own hand. You'll step into something greater than you ever dreamed, and when you look back, you'll thank Him for not letting the wrong door open. Sometimes, God doesn't just speak to you in the quiet of your spirit. He confirms things clearly, in ways you cannot ignore. Have you ever felt like God was leading you into something new? Like something inside your heart is shifting, as if a new season is approaching, and you wonder, Lord, am I hearing you right? Is this really you? Am I walking in the right direction? If you're asking those questions, be at peace. Because when God moves, He doesn't leave His children in the dark. He speaks, He confirms, and He uses many different ways to show that He is with you. Sometimes confirmation comes through His Word. Maybe you're reading the Bible and suddenly a verse lights up like it was written just for you. It speaks directly to your situation. It answers what you've been praying about for so long. That's not coincidence. That's God saying, I hear you. This is the way. Walk in it. And sometimes confirmation comes through other people. A conversation that seems random. But someone suddenly says exactly what you've been quietly praying in your heart. They have no idea what you're going through, but their words pierce straight into your soul. That's how God works. He uses people, He uses circumstances, He uses every little moment to deliver His message. Sometimes you hear a sermon and it feels like the preacher is speaking directly to you. Sometimes a friend sends you a message, and those simple words turn out to be the answer you've been longing for. Nothing is a coincidence when God's hand is orchestrating it. But that's not all. Sometimes God confirms His will through supernatural circumstances. Doors open without you ever knocking. Invitations, opportunities, relationships come from places you never imagined. And everything aligns. Everything flows. That's grace. That's when you know deep down, this couldn't be man-made. This has to be God. And dear friend, there is one more important thing. Confirmation does not always come in the form of blessings. Sometimes it comes through opposition. The enemy may recognize what God is doing in your life even before you do, and he will do everything he can to discourage you. Just before your breakthrough, strange battles often arise. Distractions show up, doubts sneak into your mind. Some people may begin to question you, causing you to wonder if you're on the wrong path. Don't be surprised when resistance shows up right as you're moving in the right direction. That is not a sign that you're wrong. Sometimes it's the clearest evidence that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. The enemy does not attack what he isn't afraid of. So if you're surrounded by battle, take heart, because something great is waiting for you on the other side. And that is the moment when you need to stand firm, preparing to step into one of the most crucial phases of your spiritual journey. Picture Nehemiah, a man with a divine vision from God to rebuild the broken walls of Jerusalem. It wasn't just a physical task, but a symbol of restoration, faith, and a divine calling. But as soon as he began to carry out that mission, trouble came swiftly from every direction. People mocked him. They looked down on him, threatened him, and did everything they could to stop his progress. Perhaps they thought, what could one man possibly accomplish? But Nehemiah didn't let their scorn reach his heart. He did not retreat. He kept building. Every stone, every section of the wall went up, not by human strength, but through unshakable faithfulness. And then the remarkable happened. What the enemy tried to tear down ended up being completed with strength and purpose. Why? Because Nehemiah did not lose heart. He held firm in faith. And when you walk in your calling, the same will be true for you. Are you facing opposition right now? Maybe you're tired because the enemy has been relentlessly pressing in. You begin to ask, am I even on the right path? But hear this clearly. Resistance may be the loudest sign that you're about to step into something significant. The issue is not what the enemy is doing. The question is, will you keep going? Will you keep building even when the noise around you grows louder? Will you keep trusting even when you cannot yet see? Will you hold on to God's word even when everything else is trying to pull you away? The key is this: you have to learn to listen. God is still speaking, but among all the noise, you must train yourself to recognize His voice. You must learn to watch, to stay grounded in the Word, and to live in prayer. This isn't something you do once and forget. It's daily faithfulness. And when you remain faithful, you will stand strong. Not because you are strong, but because you are anchored in the one who never changes. Once you stand firm, you will see. You will see doors open. You will see promises fulfilled. You will find yourself stepping into exactly what God has been preparing for you. And this is what you must remember. The closer you get to something great, the fiercer the battle becomes. The enemy is not attacking you because you are weak. He's attacking because he is afraid. He sees the potential inside you. He knows that if you step into God's promise, darkness will tremble. Chains will be broken. And that's why he will throw everything he can to stop you. He will plant doubt, stir up confusion, and do his best to wear you down. Have you ever noticed? Right before the moment of breakthrough, the pressure often reaches its highest point. Right when you're about to step through the door God has prepared, the enemy shows up with all his might. Because he knows that once you cross that threshold, you will never be the same. You will become a force for the kingdom of heaven. But the most important thing now is this: do not retreat. Remember Jesus. Right after he was baptized, right after heaven opened and the Father declared, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased," what happened next? He was led into the wilderness, tested and tempted by the enemy. That is the enemy's familiar strategy. Right after affirmation comes confrontation. Right after the declaration of your identity comes the testing of your faith in that very identity. And the same thing is happening with you. The enemy wants you to forget who you are. He wants you to doubt what God has spoken. He wants you to give up just as you are standing at the edge of breakthrough. But you cannot let that happen. Don't turn back. Don't give in. Don't let him steal what God has already placed in your hands. If today you feel like you're in the biggest battle of your life, then it's very likely that you're standing right at the threshold of a miracle. And that is exactly why you must not give up. Do not believe the lies whispering in your mind saying, "I'm not good enough. I must have heard wrong," or "this isn't meant for me." Stay alert. That is the enemy's final trick, to make you retreat just before you touch the blessing. Where are you right now in your journey? Are you feeling discouraged? Are you hearing voices of doubt surrounding your thoughts? Are you standing before an important decision and everything inside you just wants to quit? If so, you are not alone. And here's the good news. Pause for a moment and listen carefully. If you feel like something is pushing against you, if everything suddenly feels more tense and difficult than usual, that may not be a sign you're going the wrong way. On the contrary, it could be the very sign that you're on the right path. You're moving forward, and the enemy cannot remain indifferent to that. He doesn't need to fight those who are sitting still, doing nothing. He doesn't bother with those who have already surrendered and given up on their journey. But if you're making progress, if you're drawing closer to something powerful, if you're holding on to God's promises and refusing to back down, then you can be sure he will come after you. He knows exactly what is waiting for you, and he's afraid of it. He fears the strength, the freedom, the breakthrough that God is preparing for you. So if you're in the middle of a fierce battle, do not be afraid. Rejoice, because it's a clear sign that God is doing something great in your life. But do not be mistaken. The enemy doesn't always attack in obvious or direct ways. Instead, he uses every subtle but effective tactic. He will bombard you with distractions. He will throw you off course with one meaningless task after another, with hurtful words, with negative people who make you question yourself. He will draw you into pointless conversations, unnecessary conflicts, and mental pressures that drain you without you even realizing it. You may feel like you're trying so hard, yet going nowhere. Your energy is being drained by things that don't contribute to your spiritual growth. And during those moments, he quietly sows seeds of doubt in your heart. Am I really on the right path? Is this all just a waste? If God is truly with me, why are there so many obstacles? Don't fall into that trap. This is not the time to retreat. This is the time to stand firm. Keep your eyes fixed on what God has spoken. Hold tightly to the promises he placed in your heart. Be rooted in his word, because that word is your foundation. your weapon, your strength in the face of every attack. The enemy knows this truth. If he cannot steal your faith, then he cannot take the future that God has prepared for you. So what he aims for is your persistence. If he can wear you down, if he can get you to give up out of exhaustion, then he wins. But let me tell you today, even if you're feeling worn out, even if your heart is trembling, it is not time to quit. Listen closely to this. The battle is fierce because you're getting close to your breakthrough. If there were nothing great ahead, the enemy would have no reason to stop you. But he knows. He sees what's coming, and he is doing everything he can to bring you down before you get there. Scripture says, do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. And I believe your harvest is drawing near, very near. You don't need to win the battle in your own strength. You just need to keep your faith. Stand firm and do not back down. Hold fast to what God has spoken. And this is why you must make it your priority to stay spiritually strong. No one else can do this for you. You have to choose what you allow into your mind each day. You have to choose to stay close to people who speak life into you, not the ones who drown you in negativity. You have to live in the Word of God, because that is the one weapon that never fails. Remember when Jesus was tempted in the wilderness? He didn't argue with the devil. He didn't fall into the trap of reasoning. He didn't compromise. He declared the Word of God. And that is exactly how you must respond. When the enemy whispers doubt, respond with the Word. When fear starts to creep in, remind yourself of His faithful promises. When you feel like giving up, stand on the truth that God has not abandoned you, and He will finish the work He began in you. So if you're being attacked, if the pressure is rising, if you feel like you're caught in the middle of a spiritual storm, now you know why. It's not because you're weak. It's not because you've done something wrong. It's because you are standing at the edge of something new and powerful that God has set apart for you. And the enemy knows that if you make it through this moment, you will no longer be easily shaken. That's why he's launching his final attempt to stop you. But do not step back. Do not let go of what God has promised you. Do not let fear hold you in place. Be steadfast. Keep moving forward. Because if you refuse to be shaken, if you hold on to your faith in the middle of the storm, you will step into what God has prepared, and nothing will be able to stop it. When God is about to give you something big, He will ask you to walk by faith. He won't show you all the answers. He won't lay out the full picture. But He will call you to step out, to go into the unknown, to trust what you do not yet see for one reason only, because He said so. And that is the moment you must choose. Will you stop out of fear or move forward in trust? Because when you step forward, you will see the hand of God move in ways far beyond human understanding. And it is at this very point that the journey begins to shift. This is also where many people stop. Not because they don't want to move forward, but because they start to hesitate. Fear begins to creep in, not loud or obvious, but quietly, like a shadow that clings to every thought. Because stepping out in faith is not easy. It's not like walking into a familiar room where everything is neatly arranged. No, it's stepping out of your comfort zone, away from what is familiar, to face what is unknown. To walk in faith means to obey even when you don't have a map in your hands. It means trusting that God will provide even when nothing is clear in the moment. There is no human guarantee, no circumstantial certainty. There is only one thing: the call of God and a heart willing to move. Look at the life of Abraham. When God spoke to him, the message didn't come with a detailed plan or a specific roadmap. God simply said, go. Leave your homeland, leave what you know, leave the land you've lived in for years. Not knowing where he would go, not knowing what he would face, but he went. He didn't ask for more information. He didn't wait until everything looked perfect. He simply stepped out in faith. And because of that obedience, God blessed him beyond anything he had ever dreamed of. Maybe you're sitting there today, just like Abraham once did, facing a calling, but instead of moving, you're waiting. waiting for everything to make sense, waiting for fear to disappear, waiting for every door to swing open. But the truth is, faith doesn't require you to see everything clearly. Faith is action. It's taking the step first, and then the path is revealed. Some of you are feeling the prompting of the Holy Spirit very clearly. You sense that God is calling you to rise to a higher place. Maybe He is stirring you to start something completely new, a fresh beginning, a new season. Maybe He's asking you to leave behind something that once felt familiar but no longer serves His purpose for your life. Or maybe He's opening a new door in your ministry, in your career, in your family, or in a dream you've held quietly for years, but instead of stepping forward, you're hesitating. You're waiting for a sign so clear you can't ignore it. Something bold to confirm you're going the right way. But here's the thing. Sometimes God doesn't show you the entire staircase. He only shows you the first step. And only when you take that step in courage will the next one appear. It's as if He's saying, you take the step and I'll take care of the rest. Fear will always be a barrier. The enemy will always try to whisper doubt in your ear. What if you fail? What if you go and nothing changes? But pause for a moment and ask yourself a different question. What if you succeed? What if this very step is the one that leads you to the destiny God has prepared for you? What if the prayer you've whispered for years is waiting for you just on the other side of obedience? What you need to remember is this: God will not do the part that you are called to do. He may give the promise, but you have to take the step. He may open the door, but you must walk through it. He may lay out the path, but you must have the faith to follow it. Think back to Peter's story. When he saw Jesus walking on the water, he didn't know what would happen if he stepped out of the boat. He had two choices: stay in the safety of the boat, or step out into the unknown and trust in the miraculous. And he stepped out. He truly walked on water. But then he looked at the waves. He took his eyes off Jesus. And in that moment, fear crept in. He began to sink. Maybe you too have stepped out before. You've been brave once, but when the situation changed, when things didn't go as planned, you started to doubt. You let fear steal your faith. And now you're afraid to try again. You're afraid of failing again, of getting hurt again, of losing again. But I'm here to tell you this: now is not the time to retreat. Now is not the time for fear to win. This is the moment to rise, to step out in faith once more. Because if it is God who has called you, then it is also God who will sustain you. Obedience always requires faith, and faith means stepping forward before you see the full picture. It is not foolishness, but trust. Trust that even if you don't know everything, the one you're following knows it all. Trust that if He has called you, then He will also equip you. If He has shown the way, then He will walk with you. Don't let fear hold you back. Don't let unanswered questions keep you sitting still. Believe that your first step could be the beginning of a great journey. And if you're wondering, but how can I be sure I won't sink? Just remember Peter. Even though he started to sink, Jesus reached out and caught him. He didn't leave him alone. He didn't turn away. He didn't say, "I told you so." He simply reached out and lifted him up. Maybe you've sunk before, but that doesn't mean you can't walk again. And this time you won't walk alone. You just have to believe. Imagine yourself standing before a wide, rushing river. The water roars fiercely in front of you. There is no bridge, no boat. Only the voice of God echoing in your heart saying, "Step in." That was exactly the situation faced by the priests during the time of Joshua. God did not say He would part the river first so they could see the way. He did not tell them to wait until the water receded before moving forward. No. Scripture says that only when their feet actually touched the water, the river began to part. The miracle did not come before the action. It came after the step of faith. And that truth is not only for them, it is also true for you today. God is calling you to step out of your comfort zone. Not with logic, but with faith. Not when everything is clear, but when nothing makes sense. Because walking with God always begins in the place where faith is tested. He is inviting you to step into the river of your own life. It could be a difficult decision, a calling you're not ready to answer, or a new season you're afraid to face. But one thing is certain, He is calling you to step. Are you standing at a crossroads? Do you feel the still but firm voice of God in your heart urging you to move forward? And then, fear begins to creep in. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of the unknown. Like invisible waves, they pull you back into stillness. You want to move, but you're being held back by that familiar whisper of doubt. What if I'm wrong? What if nothing happens? Am I being foolish? Those questions have visited us all. Even the strongest in faith have trembled. But remember this, you will never witness the faithfulness of God unless you dare to move. The blessing is not for those who stand still and wait. The blessing comes to those who dare to walk, dare to trust, dare to act. And that action begins even when nothing is clear. You don't need to see the other side to take the step. You just need to see God. When you hear His voice and follow, you are placing your feet on the ground of miracles. Because the miracle does not wait for you to feel confident. It waits for your obedience. And when you obey, even while trembling, it is in that very moment the waters begin to part. Picture the scene. The priests with their feet deep in the muddy riverbed, shivering from the cold and fear. Yet they keep walking forward. And suddenly the roaring river splits to both sides. A dry path appears in the middle, opening the way for all of Israel to cross. That miraculous moment only happened after they took the step. You may be standing before your own river. It might be a relationship you need to release, a new door that needs to be opened, a mission you are being called to pursue. And like them, you won't see the miracle until your foot hits the water. God is not waiting for your readiness. He is waiting for your trust. You don't need all the answers. You just need unwavering faith in the one who calls you. He never promised that it would be easy, but He promised He would be with you. He never said there would be no challenges, but He assured that you would not face them alone. Every step you take in faith is a step closer to His promise. And it is there in that place where you surrender to His leading that you will see things beyond your understanding and expectations. Maybe right now you feel stuck in your safe zone. But do you know something? The comfort zone is not where miracles happen. Miracles happen on the other side of obedience. That's the place where the impossible becomes possible. Where tightly shut doors suddenly swing open. Where wisdom, strength, and blessings flow like cool water in the desert. God does not call you only to abandon you midway. He does not lead you to the edge of the river just to turn away. He is testing your faith, not to break you, but to make you stronger, deeper, and more grounded. There are things you will never learn if you stay in one place. There are aspects of His grace you will never experience unless you step into the very waters that scare you most. Remember this. Obedience always comes before the miracle. And when you take that step, even the smallest one, you are unlocking the door for the power of God to move. He is waiting for you to move forward, not with perfection, but with a heart willing to trust. So, what will you do when God speaks? Will you freeze in fear, or will you step forward in faith? Perhaps this very moment is the turning point of your life. And ahead of you, it may not be the easiest road, but it is a road filled with glory. It is the place where great things God has prepared are waiting for you. And if you walk forward, nothing will be able to stop His faithfulness from being revealed in your life.